Welcome to TezTalks Radio. I am Marissa True, and today we are spotlighting one of the members of Fortify Labs, the Web3 startup studio that was led by TZ APAC. And I am joined by Stan Kozyakov, the co-founder of Renora, a non-custodial SaaS platform that makes crypto investing simple and systematic through automation of simple and effective investment strategies. So hi, Stan. How are you today?
Hey, Marissa. Great to be here with you. I'm doing great.
So typically on this show, we always start with the story of our guest. So I would love to better understand how you entered into the world of Web3, and by that token, also Tezos as well.
Sure. Happy to share a bit more about our background. Myself, I've been building ventures all my career long for the past about 8 years or so. And last venture that I had was in the data intelligence space. So it was extremely profitable. It was concisely actually during the COVID period. So we were growing quite fast. And since the venture has been very, very profitable, we are doing a quite significant amount of returns that I had to invest into something. That's where I also explored crypto. That was back in 2020 or 2021. And very quickly, we noticed that the investment process was extremely manual and tedious. And since the volatility of the markets are always very unpredictable, we decided then to solve this problem for ourselves and to actually build something that can automate those processes for us. And that's how Renora was actually not intended for public use. It was for internal purposes only. And we built this project. We built also a couple of engines to backtest our strategies. And we launched it on our own with our own funds, which was doing quite well. The launch was about 2022 when actually the bear market was happening. But that's where we are able to systematically buy the dips very effectively as we were, approaching lower prices. And within my network, some friends were started asking if they can use it as well. So we're like, okay, sure, give it a try. And within just about 4 to 5 months, we're already managing over 6 figures. And that's where we realized that we probably need to incorporate to keep it compliant. And at the same time, we identified there is potentially a market gap that we can solve for. And therefore, then we decided eventually to actually incorporate Renora. We got, the name and everything in marketing from there onwards. And that's how Renora eventually was born out of this kind of need. That's how we all started.
So from what I'm understanding, you actually created Renora, or at least the engine that runs it, for personal use to basically simplify crypto trading and investment. But it was because you had demand from your closer network that you thought, let them try it. And I guess that was sort of the pilot test to validate it in the market. And that's what led it to become a startup. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So the interesting part is first validation for us was that people were topping up their funds to increase their returns, so to say. That was the first indicator. And then we thought if people are really putting on the funds, we were wondering if they would be willing to pay for the service as well. So initially I just, reached out to them and I said, hey, you've been using the service for the past few months. How do you like it? Would you be willing to pay for it? How much would you be willing to pay for it? And they said, yeah, I will to pay X amount based on, how much they were, utilizing it. And I literally started, invoicing them very manually, just sending like a QR code for pay now, sending an invoice, just to validate that people are willing to pay for the service as such. And after that, we realized, okay, this has quite strong validation that people are using it. They're topping up their funds, and as well as they're paying for it. That's where we thought, okay, then it kind of makes sense for us to incorporate and offer it to a broader public.
So then how exactly does the platform work? Like if I were a user to come onto the Renora site, what am I doing? How am I engaging with it?
Yeah, so we initially actually started very simply by connecting the software to an existing exchange like Binance, Crypto.com, OKX, and Coinbase. These are the 4 that we have integrated already. It's very simple. You sign up on Renora, you go through the process of onboarding, and you can connect the exchange of your choice through API keys. We have tutorials for that and step-by-step process as well, which you can follow. And once you have connected, the exchange with the platform. From there, you are able to do all the other functionalities. So you basically are able to see which funds you're holding in your account or sub account, and then from there you can select a strategy of your choice and let it run. So this is how we initially started, and then actually just this year we started actually expanding into DeFi, right? So we started deploying similar functionalities as we have on centralized exchanges into, which is like, for example, on Etherlink, as well as Arbitrum, XRPL, because we are starting receiving more requests from DeFi savvy investors who wanted to actually utilize the same functionality, but not necessarily on an exchange. And that's how our product became kind of twofold, where we have a CeFi product and then we have a DeFi product, which are currently a little bit separated, but down the road we foresee perhaps merging them together. And as a user, you would have a similar journey where you're able to actually choose, are you connecting exchange or are you connecting straight away your wallet to move forward? Yeah.
So was the DeFi product sort of spun out of a demand of the early user base that Renora had, or was it sort of something where you felt was a natural next step in terms of, I guess, expanding Renora's product portfolio?
Yeah, actually both, because on one hand we have been receiving some requests, and on the other hand, if you look at the statistics, there's been one released of usage between decentralized exchanges versus centralized exchanges. You can actually see that since about 4 years, the usage of DEXs has been rising consistently. So there's a decent trend to be seen in that direction, because a lot of users want to start taking more custody for their own and responsibility for their funds, because especially what happened back with FTX, so to say. So this actually was part of our roadmap anyway. We saw that we are going to be moving towards DeFi at one point or another, and it was just very convenient that there were opportunities that struck our way, like as for example with 45 Labs, and we decided then to take that approach and go ahead and start developing into that space too. So now we're kind of live there and trying to get more user base to actually get more DeFi savvy. Yeah.
And so when it comes to the customers that use Renora, is there a clear indication or preference for the CeFi product or the DeFi product? Or is there a shifting trend in the way that, I guess, users want to interact with either side?
Yeah. So actually, the funny part is that, as I shared with you, we had this initial traction that was just coming very organically within our network. And after we had a user base, substantial user base of managing over six figures, we are actually trying to see, okay, who are these people actually who are using our platform? Why are they using our platform, right? And we started to identify a pattern there, and we noticed these are usually very busy professionals with income of about six figures. They have disposable income. They are decently crypto savvy, or they're financially savvy. They see the potential in digital assets, and therefore they want to have exposure in it. The only thing they don't have is the time. Like, they don't have the time to manage it, and that's where Renora was actually coming in perfectly for them, is in a way that it was automating those strategies passively, and they were just receiving notifications that it has done something for them, like buying the dip, and then that's where it kind of came into. Where it comes to DeFi users, the user base is still very, very initial stage. So, but we starting seeing a pattern of very DeFi-oriented users, so who are already have been in the market for the past approximately 4 years or so. They usually would prefer to keep self-custody of their funds, and then run it on DeFi. They are very, they're very comfortable using DeFi protocols, so to say, right? And that's where they are. For them, it's not a big deal to connect their wallet to a particular app like ours, and to run it through a DEX, so that they're able to monetize on the same benefits, so to say, that are currently being offered by CeFi. But that's where we are looking forward to kind of grow our user base now, of those crypto savvy individuals, or you can sometimes even call them whales if they have those amounts. But nonetheless, aside from those two models, we are starting to identify a new third model, which started to emerge, is that a B2B2C model, right? So we have already initiated a couple of partnerships with other platforms who are offering, asset management services for digital assets. And they would like to also utilize some functionalities that Renora provides under the hood so they can white label it to their clientele directly. And that's how we actually do look forward to expand our value proposition, is that Renora doesn't always have to be the client-facing platform out there, but we can actually distribute the value across partnerships across the globe to make digital assets as simple and systematic as we say.
So I guess on the CeFi side, it's a bit like a robo advisor. So it's to basically facilitate people or retail investors in particular to invest in digital assets, and in order for them or to help them participate in like the digital asset market. While I guess for the DeFi side, it's a lot more for the crypto natives who are very familiar with this game and basically want a platform or a service to streamline however they want to operate. And then the third leg would be the institutional side. So
Yep.
Renora for that, like by that end, kind of becomes more of a service in the back end for these institutions than it is a direct client facing product. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right to say. And actually, touching on that, we also identified a trend that a lot of people who are entering the digital asset space, they usually tend to enter it through a CeFi product, right? Because it's so easy to on ramp or deposit funds, so to say. In other words, it's much user friendly, more intuitive for them. So that's how they usually start off from, and then they once they get deeper down the rabbit hole, they're like, oh, there's actually a completely new world out there in the DeFi space that I want to explore. And that's how they get more familiarized with wallets and all this kind of other self-custody solutions, where they're able then to go and leverage on other protocols which are offered in the DeFi space, right? That trend is kind of like correlates with the usage of DEXs that we started seeing as well, and therefore I think for us personally it was a great starting point, because we kind of tapped into a market that initiates from, and then moving forward towards DeFi as well. Yeah.
Okay, so CeFi is sort of like the starting step. So
Yeah.
it's the initial draw in before people, I guess, become more aware of or like increase their education levels around crypto and how to interact with it, and then basically they level up through DeFi. And then I guess on the institutional side, that's sort of its own separate stream, but you can
Yep.
sort of carry that user journey through as they become more familiar and comfortable with crypto.
Yep. That's right. That's right.
And also, you are based out of Singapore. Was that a conscious decision, or why was sort of APAC the, I guess, the optimal market to build a service like this?
Yeah, that's right. So from one of the reasons was I was already based in Singapore. I knew the ecosystem quite well. I have a network here, so that was just from size point, like it was convenience on one hand, but we also identified that Singapore is among the biggest hubs for digital assets out there, as well as it's the hub for a lot of financial institutions. So being at the spot here, it really opens a lot of doors and opportunities for us. So that was the second part of the decision to actually be based here, is because we are able to actually meet very influential people like face to face, and we are being also introduced to some people through programs like 45 Labs, as well as Singapore Management University, where we are incubated. So all those introductions are made very very simply, in a way that because we are based here, where I be able to meet those people face to face, and especially like for institutional clientele, it's very important to actually meet the person, to understand who's the founder behind Renora, and can we trust this platform, and so on and so forth. And that basically builds a lot of trust, as well as that we are incorporated here as well.
So I agree with you that Singapore is kind of a hotbed of the digital asset industry, but at the same time, we can't escape a lot of the regulatory rhetoric that's sort of coming from the US, especially because it's an election year. Um, how do you see the way people interact with digital assets over here sort of being impacted by what's happening all the way across in the States?
Yeah, I think it's still picking up quite slowly. There have been a lot of drawbacks that happened, with FTX and so on. A lot of people got burned. Also, we noticed, like for example, like last year, it was a long winter that has been lasting, and a lot of people didn't want to touch on digital assets. So it has been a challenge for Renora as well, because we launched we launched in September 2022, just before FTX crashed, so to say, and that brought
Mm.
in a long winter. But we still believed in what we're building, is because this kind of occurrence is not the first time, right? If you look back uh, in the history of crypto, there's been other exchanges that went under, and this has been happening over and over again, because there were no proper regulations in place, of course. But we also got a strong validation from the market that people are willing to utilize that, and we knew that once the recovery of the market happens, people will turn back to digital assets. That where are we going to be ready to actually offer our service, and we're mainly focused on building the new product that we're seeing today. Yeah.
Do you think people's relationship with digital assets has changed over the last couple of years? Because obviously we saw quite a big drop off in retail investment, mainly because risk appetite for something as volatile as crypto was sort of validated by the fact that the market did collapse and we all faced, like as you said, a very long and cold crypto winter. But now that we're sort of in the midst of the next cycle, do you see a difference in the way people respond to digital assets, whether it's through Renora or whether it's through your network and conversations that you have with people who are not necessarily directly involved in this industry?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We had our previous clientele that kind of also went MIA after the crash, so to say, right? And as the markets, like during the winter time, the markets were picking up, but very, very slowly. If you look back in the price chart, right, almost insignificantly, right? And even then, people were not really willing to enter back into the market, although we were giving a lot of feedback about, hey, this is a good opportunity, because the crypto cycle repeats about every 4 years, and if you look back in history, now is like the good time to invest. So we are quite heavily involved in the crypto ecosystem by hosting crypto branches, for example. That's what we initiated also back last year, approximately October, and we could see that people are still hesitating to kind of get into the space, right? Although they been in the space already, but they got burned. And then as towards October last year, we have seen a huge pump happening, right, due to ETFs. And then suddenly everyone started talking about crypto, and then suddenly people calling us and signing up and like, hey, how can I invest? And I was like, hey, I was telling you like 3 months ago to get ready for it and invest, but now you're coming in like a little bit, like, once the pump has happened, right? But nonetheless, I mean, it's still a good opportunity to enter, because we haven't even reached close to the peak of the market, at least from my perspective, and it's still good time to enter. But we definitely saw a huge difference in the behavior. And another data point that we have, for example, so aside from the investment part, we have another initiative project that we launched called W3E.ai. It's basically an event aggregator. So while we are in the crypto space, we also want to stay up to date what events are happening in Singapore and in the other regions. So we build this aggregator that can collect the data from Meetup as well as Eventbrite, and puts it all into one platform. And we could see that the number of events happening over the past like 1 year or so has been continuously increasing, right? And that also shows that people are becoming more aware about the space and starting to try to attract more audience, and people are starting to go to more events. So it becomes like a cycle that kind of goes upwards, like a spiral by itself. So that's another data point that shows us that people are becoming more and more aware about it. Yeah.
And I guess it's also another sort of correlational indicator of the health of the industry as well. Like the more events there are, there's more to talk about, there's more people to attract, and therefore there's probably more action in the market. And I think a tool like that would have been especially good to know about following Token 2049, which was last week. And I don't know whether you partook in all of the mayhem that was the thousands of side events that were taking place in the span of a week.
Yeah, but everyone is using that one specific Excel sheet, so it's probably the lowest tech is always like the most friendly to people
which
usually.
yeah, which is
Yeah.
something that's always blown my mind, that for a very tech forward industry, and I think an aggregator would be so helpful, but somehow tens of thousands of us have all decided the Google sheet is the best way to go.
Yeah,
So then,
sometimes it just works.
yes, sometimes the simple stuff just works. So then I would love to also explore what your experience was like in working with Fortify Labs. So obviously TZ APAC are based out of Singapore as well. They've created this Web3 startup studio. How did you come to discover Fortify Labs, and talk us through the journey of Renora through it?
Yeah, yeah. So how we got in touch was actually that I was pitching at one of the other events, founder events, and one of the members called Julian. He reached out to me. He said like, "Hey, we're launching this new program, and Renora could be a good fit for that." So that's how he, got me in touch with the program manager, and we wanted to understand better how the program is structured. And after that call, it kind of like really makes sense. It was a very synergetic opportunity, I think, because as I shared, like we were already planning to go into DeFi, and that's where the program kind of came in at a really right timing, where they were offering different services and support to do that kind of deployment. So that's how we kind of got into this partnership, and since about February or March last this year. Yeah.
And what was the experience actually like? Like, how did Renora, I guess, mature over the course of the program?
Yeah, so they have been extremely supportive for us in different ways on the marketing side. So just recently during the token, we had a booth where we are exhibiting at one of the major side events organized by Tezos. As well as on the other side, from the technical side, they also had a team that was supporting us on the development, right? Because we had to also kind of get our hands dirty on how those things work, especially when it comes to on-chain development. So they had a team to support us in that as well, and overall they have advisory that also putting us in touch with the right decision makers. BD arm, I have to say, was really, really the best support so far, who is very well connected and is able to put us in touch, again, with potential partnerships as well as clientele. Yeah.
So it sounds like there were sort of different factions that could help out with different dimensions of the business, and I guess in terms of business development, probably being one of the things that Renora would benefit from the most. That was sort of where a lot of like energy was channeled. In as far as Renora in its current state, and then bringing it to whatever future state you have envisioned, what are sort of the next steps that you're currently working on?
Yeah, that's so what we're really excited about is to, since we're already deployed on DeFi, we want to actually make the audience more aware about that. As we are seeing that there might be a potential recession coming in, although the markets have been pumping quite a bit, there might be a correction coming into the market. And I think we want to make people pretty much aware about the opportunity. It's almost like the last opportunity that they can take before the next bull run kind of kicks in, and utilize, make full use of the tools that we provide and we use ourselves to, for example, buy the dips, right? So to systematically deploy that capital over the next, let's say, 3 to 6 months, and then from there being able to then hodl it out to the next bull run peak, so to say. But on the technical side, so to say, we are continuously evolving our product on the DeFi space as well, in a way that aside from just purchasing or automating the purchasing process, we will be integrating also yield protocols, so that your assets that you buy will automatically be channeled into yield protocol so that your capital constantly works for you. And then last but not least, also integrating a selling protocol, which will be selling it at peaks. And then you can set your targets. For example, okay, once, let's say, Bitcoin reaches 180K, then sell the peaks for me. Like you can unstake it, for example, and then sell the peaks for me, to kind of lock in the profits. And then from there onwards, again, you can go and lend it out on another yield protocol so that your capital constantly works for us. So we're our goal, our vision is to automate this whole cycle of investing, taking that opportunity, generating yield, and exiting the market and generating yield as well, so that your capital constantly works for you and fully passively, and you basically can focus on your day-to-day regular commitments that you have. So that's kind of like we're building a tool almost for ourselves, but we're happy to kind of offer it to the greater public so that everyone can make use of it, and not necessarily need to be like a pro trader to automate this kind of processes. Yeah.
And I think that's often the sticky point, or the thing that blocks people from participating in any kind of investment, whether it's digital assets or the traditional market, is this idea of I have to be switched on at all times and know exactly what's going on at all times, even if we're not necessarily the most financially literate yet, or just starting our investment journey. So it sounds like on the one hand you're handling sort of the education and the awareness building for the actual user base, but then on the more technical side, it's more about automation and simplifying the user journey to make people more comfortable and more confident with investing altogether, again, whether it's digital assets or whether conventional assets.
Yes, that's right. Like even for myself, when I started trading and investing into crypto, like even then, it was quite a challenge because when you're managing one asset, okay, it's still kind of doable. But imagine you're managing 8 to 10 different tokens that you are invested into, and they all run kind of concurrently. There's correlation, but they still have their individual, drops and peaks and so on, and that becomes a nightmare because now you have to really coordinate how much capital you're going to allocate for each drop of the market, then and you have to calculate the lot size, and there's just so many variables in between that you have to do manually, and that's where we really decided to automate that process and backtest it to be sure that, hey, what we're doing is actually makes a lot of more sense than if I would do it manually, so to say. And from portfolio standpoint as well, like we were really surprised that a lot of people still use Excel sheets or Google Sheets to manage their portfolio, whereas we have built out a very simple portfolio management tool where you just plug in your exchanges. It will automatically sync out all the balances and orders for you. And the cool part about this is that a lot of exchanges, they just provide you the transactions that you've made, right? You buy, sell, and so on. So people have to really figure out themselves which positions they're still holding. What Renora does for you is actually it shows you the positions, right? So it will automatically match the buy and sell orders together, and will show you how much of asset do you have left for each order that you have executed as a position, and then okay, these positions are profitable and these are not, so you know how much you can liquidate for profit and which positions you might want to hold on to, right? So surprisingly, this still doesn't really exist in the in the crypto space. It does exist in the traditional markets, right? So when we entered the space, I was like, how do people do that? I asked my friends, they're like, we're using sheets, and I'm like, okay, there's something to be solved as well. So yeah, a lot of this industry is really new. I think there's a lot of problems still to be solved down the road. Yeah.
So by that token, it's about making sure all of the fundamentals and the bare basics are handled as this industry continues to grow.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So the final question I have for you is that if anyone is actually looking to learn more about Renora, or potentially want to start investing or begin their crypto journey, where can they find more information?
Absolutely. So one way to go about it is to follow us on Twitter. Our handle is Renora_IO. Very simple. Or find us on LinkedIn as well. We do publish our updates there. And the best way to learn is to get your hands dirty. So just get started. You can do it with Renora or without, but please just kind of start it with a small amount and learn how those things are being done. And once you overcome the biggest challenge of starting, I think that's where things become much simpler. Once your hands are a little bit dirty, you're kind of getting familiar with all those things and you're getting more comfortable, then you understand how much risk you can take and start deploying more capital, so to say, right? No matter if it's on CeFi or DeFi. So that's how people should get started. Where it comes to learning more, so again, following our channels is probably the best way. We have a blog as well that we are running on our website under renora.io. You can sign up, and then all kind of new information that we're sharing about the market conditions, as well as new ways to be able to systematically invest, are going to be shared there too.
So plenty of tools and information for people to sink their teeth into. And if there's one lesson here, is it's way less scary once you actually get started.
Absolutely. I remember my like early days as well. Yeah.
I think we all have firmly planted in our memory our first experience of buying cryptocurrency and then looking back on it now and thinking I am so far from that start point. So I guess it's about encouraging everyone else to sort of begin that journey if it's right for them.
So just wanted to add on to this. I think, from what we are starting to see, how digital assets are becoming more of a mainstream. Like started off with ETFs, and now major platforms are starting to offer it to a broader public. We start also seeing platforms that pop out that gives you the ability to pay with debit cards with crypto. I see definitely that digital assets is like the new trend that's going to be coming sooner or later, and the sooner we educate ourselves about it, the more opportunities we can tap onto. Right? Nobody wants to stay behind, so to say, about this, because this is like, so to say, the new internet, right?
I think it's fantastic sort of final words. But Stan, thank you so much for running us through Renora, everything that you are building with it, and also just giving us a bit of your take about the way you see the digital asset market unfolding over the near future. There's plenty of resources that you cited, so I highly encourage anyone who's listening to go and check them out. And otherwise, it would be great to keep up to date with Renora and its growth. So thank you so much again for joining us on TES Talks.
Hey, Marissa, it was really great to talk to you, and thanks for having us.